Welcome to Around the ECHL every Tuesday here on AllenAmericans.com, the brand new AllenAmericans.com website, along with, of course, all of our social media channels. And Around the ECHL brought to you by Bang Solar, a brand new partner at Allen Americans Hockey and the group that is redesigning the Allen Americans locker room. Tommy Daniels, alongside my broadcast partner for the last 10 years, buddy boy, Maurice Fitzgerald, and a good friend and a long-time broadcaster around the league. I shouldn't say long time, but it seems like you've been around forever. The voice of the Reading Royals, number one, David Fine. How are you, Finer?
Hey, it's great to be here. Hope everything's down well down there in Allen.
Well, you've been here. Maybe that's a good place to start. The Allen Eagles, their quarterback from a few years back, Kyler Murray. What a performance by him yesterday in the NFL. Hey, you got a chance to tour that stadium. Were you blown away when you saw the 20+ thousand seat stadium and the $62 million plus venue that they have here in Allen?
Yes, and I'm not being facetious when I say that I will mention to multiple people, especially here in Pennsylvania or if I'm back home in New Jersey, that I was there because the stadiums aren't built like that in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey. And Tommy, you were kind enough to help set that up. And if you remember, the gentleman that gave us the tour was from the same town that I was born in, Bloomfield, New Jersey. And so that made it a little bit more special too. Chatted it up with him just a little bit. But man, I tell people that you have no idea just how cool it is to walk into a high school football stadium that looks like that, because it is better than probably some Division I college facilities. And man, it was awesome. And I will tell people that there's like 4 levels to the suite level press box thing. And you look like you're looking down on the entire state of Texas when you're all the way up top. So that was really cool. And I could not thank you enough for enlightening me to the amazingness that is Texas high school football.
And that guy you spoke of, Tim Carroll, who is from your hometown and just retired after 25 years with Allen ISD. That was a fun tour. Myself, yourself, and Eric, of course, from Worcester was there that day. And you know what? That was your only trip to Allen. What do you think of the great fine city of Allen, Texas?
It's great. It reminds me a little bit of some places that I visited when I was out in the USHL, maybe on a little bit of a bigger level. The Allen Events Center is a good facility, and I don't know if the visiting broadcasters are still on the roof, but I made some videos up there, and our fans were loving it. It got us some good fan engagement. So I liked running around on the roof, and you probably didn't like me for doing that, but that's okay. I had fun time doing it, and I'll do it again the next time I'm there.
Let's get right to the tough questions, David. I mean, with all the stuff that's been going on and you've been sitting at home, how much Netflix have you spent time on?
And not a lot.
Really?
Not a lot. It's interesting. I have Netflix and I have HBO Max, and I should probably cancel both. I feel like I'm just
Really?
on Twitter on my phone the entire day. And my problem is that I really have trouble sitting and watching an episode for more than 30 or 40 minutes. And so when I say I started Yellowstone on Peacock, like NBC Universal, started it like 3 weeks ago, I'm like less than an episode in because I'll watch for 10 minutes and I'll fall asleep or put my phone down. So I'm a bad person to be asking about it. I've watched a few shows in full on Netflix, but not during the pandemic, believe it or not.
Wow.
I've kind of tried to stay away from it. What about you? What are you watching?
I've been watching everything. Yellowstone is a fantastic series. If you have not watched it, totally recommend watching it. It's a great show. Costner's fantastic in it, as is everybody else. Rip is my favorite character. When you watch the series, you'll see why. But if you get a chance and you can set aside the time, I would recommend definitely watching it. Maybe when you're on the road.
Yeah, I have the time. That's the thing. I just,
The desire.
it just hasn't worked out.
This is the voice of the Reading Royals, David Fine, joining us here on Around the ECHL. So, big weekend. I say yesterday was one of the best sports days of the year. You had the Masters in November. Wow, what a great weekend it was for that. And NFL football. Start first with the Masters. How great was that?
It was cool to see Dustin Johnson win. I'm not as big of watching golf on TV. The only golf I've really watched on TV was at the start of the pandemic when they had like the head-to-head matchups. Who was it that went head-to-head and they were trash talking each other? But I'll follow on Twitter and I'll follow the Tiger Tracker on Twitter. And I saw he had like one really bad shot here or there that everybody was kind of teasing him about. But you know what? Like I've gotten a little bit more into it. We host our charity golf tournament in Reading every year. This year was our best year ever doing it. Raised almost 10,000, well, not quite $10,000, about 8,000 for charity, which was huge for us. And yeah, like, I mean, despite COVID and everything, that was fun to be a little bit more involved in it this year. And I'll defer to you on the true Masters talk. I don't want to make myself sound like a phony here. I did see that Dustin Johnson had one though.
Well, it makes us all feel human, David, when Tiger shoots a 10 on a hole. I mean, and that wasn't even the worst of all. I think somebody actually shot a 13 back in the day, but I almost felt sorry for Tiger. And how can you feel sorry for Tiger? He's the richest man in golf. An amazing story from last year, but see him constantly hitting that ball in the water, I was like, man, he looks like me. And that's no comparison whatsoever. Arguably the greatest athlete of all time. But it was fun watching that yesterday for sure. That was how I spent my Sunday. And then having my heart ripped out when Kyler Murray, coincidentally talking about Allen, Texas, buried my Buffalo Bills on the very last, well, next to the last play of the game. There was 1 second remaining. What an incredible throw by Murray and even better catch by DeAndre Hopkins as he went up in not between 1 or 2, but 3 Bills defenders to catch that ball and bury my Bills.
I'm really sorry about that. I know, having lived in Central New York for 4 years, that the people of Western New York and Central New York just love the Buffalo Bills, and the fans are top notch, great people. You see all the videos of them jumping through chairs and tables and everything, and that's not really, I think, what it's about. It's very family oriented, is what I found. And every fan base kind of has the people that are going to have a little too much fun and have a few too many beers maybe before a game. But the Eagles fans in Reading area just do it a little bit differently, a little bit more anger in it maybe. But I felt bad for the Bills yesterday. It was a tremendous play by Kyler Murray and one of the best catches to end a game, maybe in NFL regular season history, from Hopkins. But I felt bad for the Bills. I kind of like rooting for the Bills because they've kind of been the lovable losers for a little too long. I'm glad that Josh Allen is proving that he is a franchise quarterback. Yeah. And hopefully steal a game later in the year. That one's forgotten. Go to the playoffs and see what happens.
So talk about your start in broadcasting, David. How did you get from where you started in doing play-by-play all the way now with Reading?
So it started out, I had not done high school broadcasting. The school I went to in high school didn't really offer anything like that. And I didn't really know I wanted to do it. And there was probably an opportunity there if I was sure that I wanted to get into play-by-play, but wasn't naive or smart enough at the time, maybe. I ended up kind of trying to figure out whether I wanted to do writing or play-by-play. I was fortunate enough to get accepted to Syracuse University and basically say I want to do the play-by-play route. And when I was a freshman, I got involved in the college radio station. And Tommy knows this a little bit better when I say the winters are brutal. And they told us, and it was fine in September, but like first week or two on campus, they said you need to be here. Basically, I think it was 5 a.m. And you're going to be there for like 2 or 3 hours. And I was at the furthest point, probably about a mile and a half-ish, a little bit less walk to the radio station. And so, it's a 15-minute walk or so, 20-minute walk. And it's fine in September when it's 60 degrees when you wake up. But by November, sometimes there's snow on the ground and I didn't have a car. And I kept on doing that walk every day and met some of the WAER radio station and met some of the most talented and best people that are still in this industry. And then at the same time, I got involved in hockey. I went to an internship fair, and the Syracuse Crunch were looking for someone to help out with time on ice in the American Hockey League. And I said, well, I don't really know. I can keep track of the time. They said, no, just show up and, we'll have the main guy up there and you'll help him. His name's Jeff Monahan, and he kind of was pointing out a few things the first day, like, hey, look for this, look for this. And he had a modified Microsoft Excel program that would basically record time. So if you imagine you click on a cell in Microsoft Excel and the time starts running, and he had created this program himself. And he would be yelling at me, or we'd kind of alternate. I would yell at him. Okay, at that time, it was Patrick Maroon and Kyle Palmieri stepped out on the ice, two of the more notable players, because they were affiliated with Anaheim at the time. And then about halfway through the year, I got to know the broadcaster a little bit better there. And he said, come on over and help do some stats. And the year finished up, and I kind of did stats for the radio broadcast the rest of the time. And then the other broadcaster had moved on, and they hired Dan Duva, who's now the voice of the radio voice of the Vegas Golden Knights. And Dan welcomed me back after a nice interview. And from there, I just fell in love with hockey even more. And I started making play-by-play tapes, and had never done play-by-play until I was a sophomore in college. From there, I worked some various baseball jobs. I was in Lansing, Michigan for a summer. I transitioned that to be in the USHL in Kearney, Nebraska with the Tri-City Storm. I'm from the East Coast originally, and it's been great the last 3+ years to be back with Reading. So that's kind of my story. But it all started with walking across a college campus in the snow and sleet at 5 a.m. And taking the bus down to the old Syracuse War Memorial as a freshman.
Well, you got to remember, when you tell your kids and grandkids that it's uphill both ways, remember that.
Well, in Syracuse, it can be. That's the funny thing. So,
David, I've done college football myself at Midwestern State. I've done, CBA basketball, college baseball. I've done it all. Hockey to me, definitely is the most challenging. What's your thought? What's the toughest broadcast to do?
I just think baseball and football are a lot tougher than hockey. Maybe it's the way my mind works, but in football, I think the challenge, and I had the opportunity to do a few football games for my alma mater a few weeks ago on Mixler too. We just signed them up for Mixler and went for it. And I hadn't done football in about 4 years. And what the challenge of football is you're setting the scene, and then it's go, go, go. And baseball is the same thing, because you're setting the scene. Hey, the pitcher, peers over his glove into the catcher, lines back in, here's the pitch. And then if that batter makes contact, it's go, go, go. And if there's 2 or 3 guys on base, it's tough. And hockey, I think I like that it's continuous. Basketball is continuous. Lacrosse is continuous. And I love doing lacrosse and hockey and basketball. I like that it's kind of a constant flow and you get in a rhythm. Whereas in baseball and football, I think it's tough because you really got to pick it up right on the spot. And if you sound silly for those 4 seconds in football, and the running back is all of a sudden 30 yards downfield, man, you really sound stupid if he's still at the line of scrimmage in your play-by-play call.
Yep. This is David Klein, the voice of the Reading Royals, joining us here around the ECHL. Tommy Daniels alongside my broadcast partner, Maurice Fitzgerald. Mo?
If you were not doing play-by-play right now, what would you be doing for a day job?
Something in weather, not like TV weather.
Mm-hmm.
I was really interested in becoming a meteorologist, not necessarily the TV one, though I don't know if I'd be able to survive as Jim Cantori at some of these hurricane sites. But I was really enthralled with the weather and maybe being like a storm chaser when I was a kid. Everybody says they want to be a firefighter, a policeman, or a pro baseball player. And I was talking about going maybe a little bit north of the Dallas area and trying to spot some tornadoes in Oklahoma or Kansas. Maybe something in the weather. I've always been interested in that, or science. I've always liked science.
So we've all got those embarrassing moments. I'll tell you one of mine. It's kind of funny. I got locked in a bathroom in Amarillo during the intermission. And I knew it was like, I probably should have, run it. But we drink 5 or 6 waters a game, right? So you need that bathroom break. So all of a sudden I realized that I was probably in a bathroom that nobody was going to be come to check on me until after the game. And I hear the PA announcer, telling the fans that here come your Amarillo, gorillas they were at the time, back on the ice. And I am just pounding on this door. I mean, pounding with my hand was red. That was not just because our colors are red, but because I was pounding on this door literally for 10 minutes. And finally, this janitor opens the door, and I was just ready to, put my fist on the door one more time. He thought I was going to hit him, and he backed up. And I thanked the guy for letting me out. And believe it or not, I made it back into my broadcast about 2 minutes in. I know you've got to have some great story of something that's happened to you over the years.
You reminded me of one by telling your story in a similar vein. So this was in college, and we were at the PNC Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina, to call the last game of the Syracuse basketball season versus NC State. Great facility. It's where the Carolina Hurricanes play. And was running down because the elevator was taking too long or whatever. We decided to take the stairs down to the press conference. And the press conference was notable, or ended up being notable. Jim Boeheim, who was actually just diagnosed with COVID, so wishing him the best, obviously. But Jim Boeheim in Syracuse had received some pretty substantial NCAA levies, fines, and there's going to be some suspensions built in for violations. And so that was right after it had been announced, and Boeheim had coached the game against NC State, but we knew that things were not going to be normal the next year. And so we're running down the stairs, and we need to hear what Boeheim says. We have to get the sound for our radio station. It was the final game of the year. Syracuse had been suspended from the ACC tournament, and there was no NCAA tournament as part of the NCAA rules. And we get down to that final level. We get as low as we can go by where the press conference is going to be. And the door to the stairwell is locked. And you know how, like, when you look at those key card swaps, they're red, and then when you can get out, they're green, right? And you normally put the key card. We didn't have anything like that. We were just the visiting college radio broadcasters, and we are slamming on this freaking door as hard as we can. And we're nervous because we're 20-something years old, and you can't miss the sound, and you can't, you couldn't be able to explain to the program and sports director of the radio station what was going on. We kept on hammering this door, and suddenly, after we were imagining that the press conference had to be over, some kind gentleman walks by, and we hear the sound of I'll call it the sound of the green, him putting his key card up on the other end. And he opens the door, and we said, "Thank you, sir." Like, I must have been sweating too. And we said, "Thank you. Where's the press conference?" And he said, "Right down the hall." And we sprinted as quickly as we can. And Mike Hopkins, who was the assistant coach, ends up being the one to be in the press conference. Boeheim kind of chickened out of the press conference or didn't show up. So it ended up being notable for a different reason. And we missed maybe 3 seconds of it, and it wasn't a big deal.
Mo, last question of the night. Take us home.
So what's your plans for Thanksgiving, which is not very far away at all?
Not going to be doing much. A quiet dinner with family. Going to be taking some precautions, not the normal thing this year. Normally the family Thanksgiving wouldn't be too much anyway, but my mother does make a really good, it's like a carrot pie, and it's basically, it may as well just be carrot cake with the amount of sugar that's in it, but it's kind of like a carrot casserole in a, like a square foil container. And it tastes probably more like sugar than carrots, but for one day, that's okay. What about you guys? I know, like, we're pretty bland when it comes to not the food taste, but there's no like mac and cheese or pulled pork. I know some people will do. What do you guys do on Thanksgiving? Because I absolutely love it.
Basic turkey gravy, potatoes, and stuffing, I think, is pretty much a standard that we go with.
Yeah, I love the stuffing, and I got to admit, I am a sweet potato guy. I know a lot of people don't like sweet potatoes. But I enjoy them. I think it's great. And something, honest to God, David, I didn't have my first cranberry until I was about 25 years old. I refused as a kid, but boy, was I missing out for a long time, because now I am a cranberry junkie. And maybe it started with drinking cranberry juice, but, cranberry is one of the things that I missed out as a kid, but I'm glad I'm up to speed now.
I was going to say, it's tough to become a cranberry junkie. So I know you've been doing a lot of drinking cranberry juice and eating. So I'm glad that I know there's at least one person in that cat. I wouldn't be a junkie. I would be maybe an enthusiast would be the better way to say it.
Hey, this is the very last thing. And I just thought about this, and I wanted to get your 2 cents on this before we go. Mike Emrick retired after the playoffs this year. Whether you're a Doc fan or not, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are not. There's a lot of people that worship the guy, and he's been an amazing person for the hockey world. Just give us your 2 cents on Doc Emrick and in his legacy that he leaves with us. David?
Yeah, Doc was somebody that, oh, sorry, did you get me back here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you hear me okay, Tommy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought I lost you guys for a second. Doc Emrick is one of the most special broadcasters and people on the planet. I grew up in North Jersey, and he was the voice of the New Jersey Devils. And growing up 7 miles from the Meadowlands, a lot of times, I mean, I went to maybe a handful of games a year. My dad was would take me 2 or 3 times a year. But when I was not watching live, was watching on TV, and Doc and Chico Resch had arguably the best partnership in hockey on the regional side, and Doc was so great for it, and Chico still does Devils radio broadcasts, and he was a large part of it. But as an impressionable 10 to 20-year-old, knowing I wanted to get into this or eventually get into this at the time, and man, Doc just he was the guy. He was funny, he was likable, and he was so darn professional for all those years, calling Marty Brodeur and Patrick Elias and Scott Gomez. And without that, I truly believe this, without hearing him for all those years, I would have probably not wanted to. A lot of our brethren in the ECHL is that he was a primary factor in why a lot of us wanted to get into this, and knowing that he did it the right way. So he'll be back for a celebrity broadcast at one point. You just know he's going to pop in somewhere at some point, but wishing him the best in retirement until he puts the headset on again for a game.
Well, David, thank you for doing this. Great to see your smiling face. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Early Merry Christmas, and we will see you down the road.
That sounds great, Tommy. Thanks again.